Premier League came back this weekend and we had a very, very entertaining Super Sunday. So make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and let's get straight into it with Man City versus Bournemouth because this was a very exciting game. It was very entertaining and it was one I was looking forward to watch because Man City lost to Arsenal 3-0 a week prior. And there's a lot of question marks about Man City. There's players leaving, there's players going in, new manager, will the players like the system, who's going to succeed in the system. And the thing that I got from that City game versus Bournemouth, and Bournemouth's always a tough task for anyone, whether it's Arsenal, Man City, United, they're always going to be a tough game. And what I learned from this game right away, and even towards the end of the later stages, is some of those players cannot play for Man City. Some of those players shouldn't be even in the bench of Man City. Rico Lewis, he should be nowhere near Manchester City. Jack Grealish, he should be nowhere near the bench even. If Jack Grealish is coming on at this stage of his career for Manchester City, who's trying to fight for titles, I don't get it. I don't understand it. And then there's other players that just don't show the level. Phil Foden. It's been a year and a half now. Like there's time. You give a player enough time, and he just still doesn't find his feet. Then you have someone like Semenyo, who I think had a very bad game. He has very good moments when he's out in the right, but playing at the left wing where he has to cut in and beat his man, but beat his man by being smart on the ball, just nowhere near. Like on the right, he looks better because he can just explode forward and put a cross in, right? But when he's at left wing, he has to take a player on by being more technical, being more skillful. There's no way he couldn't get through his fullback. He had a very bad game. And now you think, look at players deeper, right? Ruben Diaz. Ruben Diaz is one of those players that he just fell out of nowhere. Out of nowhere, he just started dipping it. It's bad to see, right? Because Ruben Diaz, I think he won Premier League Player of the Year when they won the treble, or the year prior, or one of those years. He won Player of the Year, and then you see that now he can't even put a pass going forward. He can't break lines, or even defensively, he can't cover enough space. Like some of those players shouldn't be starting for City, and someone like Rico Lewis and Grealish, they should be nowhere near the bench as well. So that's something I got pretty right away, that they need to even not. I don't know if they want need to replace him or just get rid of him and give more time for youngsters. But some of those players should be nowhere near Manchester City. The other thing, probably the most important thing, Turkey has to start. I don't care if it's Foden out. I don't care if it's Semenyo out. I don't care who it is. As a neutral fan, I need Turkey to start. As someone who watches the Premier League for fun, Turkey has to start. And even if you're a Man City fan, you probably agree with me, because what Turkey did when he came on, putting up the assist and then having the performance that he would go pick up the ball and create something. Phil Foden would get the ball and pass it backwards. Semenyo would get the ball and not be able to beat his man. Tricky got the ball and created chances. He's so good. He's so talented. I don't understand why Enzo Maresca decided to bench him and put him into the end of the match. It probably would have been an easier game for them, for easier, not just for Man City, but easier game for individuals like Haaland. It'd probably be an easier game for him if Turkey was on. It would probably be an easier game for Semenyo if you can make a run and Turkey finds him. It'd probably be easier for everyone involved if Turkey starts for City. And as a neutral fan, he's so good to watch. He could be between three players, but he'll find the perfect pass. He could be putting a cross, and the cross looks perfect. He could be switching the ball, and it's just a perfect pass. Turkey has to start for Manchester City, and I think Haaland would probably like that. There's a lot of times Haaland would make a run or hint that he's going to run or make some body movements, but they just wouldn't find him. Kovacic isn't gonna put in that type of pass. Elliot Anderson isn't going to put that type of pass, and I'll get to him in a bit. Phil Foden isn't going to put up those passes. Semenyo isn't going to put up those passes. There's a lot of times where Haaland will see a run, he'd make the movement, he'd make a little run, but they just wouldn't pass the ball to him. They would split the lines for him. So I think Turkey has to start. Turkey will find Haaland multiple times, and he has to start. And I think that Enzo Maresca will start him from now on, right? Because you look at Phil Foden, the performance he had was embarrassing. Like, this is a guy that's been at Man City his entire career. He's around 25, 26 now, I think. And they've given him time. They're giving him the keys to Man City, but nothing. He doesn't do anything. He doesn't adapt to it. He does the same things over and over again. He's slow on the ball sometimes. Going forward, he sometimes does the wrong passes. Like, there's something with Foden that he has a very good shot on him. He has some good shots this game. But it's just he doesn't move the needle at Man City. I don't think he does really anything. I think he'd play good alongside Turkey, but I don't think by himself you can't rely on him to win you games anymore. And it's sad to see, right? Because he's a talented player. He's a Man City academy player, but as a neutral fan, with no bias towards him, I just think that he's not good enough to start for Manchester City. There's a couple players in there that like Doku. For me, Doku when he's fit, he has to start. When Doku is fit, he has to start. And the other guy I want to talk about, Elliot Anderson, the big money signing. I don't know why Enzo Maresca is using him in the manner he's using him. He's using him as a like a right-sided eight, kind of like taking positions that you would see Kevin De Bruyne take. You would see Bruno Fernandes take. You would see these type of creative players just shift to the right and put those deadly crosses in, But Elliot Anderson isn't that type of player. Elliot Anderson isn't the type of guy to do some crazy through pass or put in the perfect cross. I don't think that's his type of that what he does, right? You look at Elliot Anderson, and I think he's a very good six. I think he could be an eight, but I think in a very specific manner too. But Man City, well, they needed someone to break play, break the counterattacks before they even start, stop play, take players down, win the balls, win the duels. And I think that's what Elliot Anderson is very good at. And apart from that, Elliot Anderson is very underrated on the ball. On the ball, he has some very good line breaking passes. He has some very good dribbling. Going forward, driving the ball, he's very good at that. I don't understand why you need Rico Lewis on the ball more than Elliot Anderson. I don't understand why you need some other players more on the ball than Elliot Anderson. I think he's very underrated on the ball. But something I've been criticizing Enzo Maresca a lot, for the past week or so. But one thing that I will give him credit for is putting Mark Gahey in a sixth role. Mark Gahey looked very good, having that freedom to stay in the middle or drive forward. There's moments where he was literally hitting the byline in the small box of the goalkeeper box. He putting crosses in. It was very entertaining to see Mark Gahey in that different role. But the thing is, you got to give Enzo Maresca time. Players need to adapt. Players need to get used to what Enzo Maresca wants. Enzo Maresca will get the hang of it at some point. And then you have players like Haaland and Cherky and Doku and Semenyo and Kuzanov, who I rate very highly, and Vardiol, who had a very good game. And you still have O'Reilly. You still have other players in there that will do very well. They still need a good amount of signings. I think they announced Boadi. They might need another midfielder or another fullback, but give them time, man. Give them time, and now I want to talk about the other Super Sunday game who that I was also very excited for in Liverpool versus Newcastle. And this was a very entertaining game. I was very happy to see this game because straight off the bat, I think it was like 4 or 5 minutes in, Newcastle hit one of the fastest counterattacks that I've seen in a long time. The counterattack was so quick, and I think Jasler is setting up Newcastle very, very well. Defensively, they looked solid. Going forward, they look so fast. They look so electric. It was so fun to see. I like seeing these type of teams that understand what type of team they are, hit the teams on the counter. And you look at players like Elanga, you look at players like Osula, you look at players like Harvey Barnes. He's not the fastest, but he has that speed to get there at the perfect time. But Osula and Elanga specifically, and even their right back, I forgot their right back's name. Their new right back, they signed a right back. I think he's like Bosnian I forget where he's from, but their new right back is very good, very fast, very soft on the ball, very good on the ball. But Osula and Elanga on that counter attack, they look electrifying. They look terrifying. They look scary on the attack. Elanga taking on Kirkis. Who Kirkis for me? He's an athlete. He's very quick. He's an athletic big guy. His build is very athletic. He's fast. He's strong. But the way Elanga just speeded through him like it was nothing. Like it was nothing. He just ran straight ahead and beat Kirkis to it with a beautiful finish as well. And at this point, you're like, this is the same Liverpool again. This is the Arne Slot Liverpool. Slow on the counter, slow on the ball. And in that play, Gravenberch loses the ball just so simple. He is on the right side of the pitch. He tries to shift the ball to the left when there's four defenders there. Instead of shooting or giving it to Soboslai looked annoyed that he didn't get the ball. And there's little mistakes like that will keep ruining Liverpool until they get the hang of the Iraiola's system. And look, again, I have to criticize some of these Liverpool players, man, and I have to criticize the big money ones. like Florian Wirtz and Alexander Isak because they were embarrassing. Alexander Isak and Florian Wirtz were truly embarrassing. I like stories. I'm a story guy. I like stories. I like underdog stories. I like stories in general, different type of stories. I'm a story guy. And Alexander Isak going to Newcastle's ground. Go after being booed off the pitch when he walked in, being booed off the pitch every time he has the ball, being booed, being whistled at. You figured Isak would try, maybe get extra motivation from that. People have been telling me that he is one of the best strikers in the world. The season he had on Newcastle 2 years ago. You guys got to remember that season. Isak just looked terrible. It was embarrassing. It was truly embarrassing because as someone who likes stories, you thought this is gonna motivate the player. Isak's gonna go out there and trying to win every ball, every duel, take as many shots as he can, make as many runs as he can. But no, he looked weak. He looked soft. He would lose the ball right away. He didn't take any shots. He didn't create any chances for himself. He would get the ball and pass it backwards. Isak was embarrassing. And so was his partner, Florian Wirtz, who people have been telling me, oh, you gotta watch the games. It's not all about GA. It's not all about GA. I've watched the Wirtz enough over the course of this past year now to know that he's being soft, he's being lazy, he's being I don't know what it is, but it's embarrassing to watch because this guy is meant to be one of the best creative players, one of the best tens. He's meant to be such a talent that he just goes through anything. But no, he looks embarrassing. He gets pushed around the ball. He gets the ball and passes it backwards. There's no real creativity to him. It's not like he puts some good crosses in. He's not putting in good through balls. I just Florian Wirtz. And then the entire last season, people were telling him, "Oh, give him time. Oh, it's not all about GAs. It's not all about goals and assists. Look at his performances. Look at his performances." And then I'd watch the games and I'd be like, "What performances? He's not having good performances. He's having good performances if he played for, with all due respect, if he played for Ipswich, who won, by the way, very good game by Ipswich." But it's not. If that would be a good performance for Brendan Aronson at Leeds. Though that would be a good performance for players at Sunderland for Siddiqui. Well, not Siddiqui. I like Siddiqui, but that'd be a good performance if he played in one of these teams. That'd be a good performance if he was playing at Coventry. But he's playing at Liverpool Football Club, and it cost them 120 million. The performances he puts out would be good for a 15 million pound player, but he's not a 15 million pound player that came from Coventry. He's an 120 million pound player that came from Bayern Leverkusen after being undefeated, after going to Europa League final, after winning the cup, after being one of the best players in Leverkusen for those 2 3 years. This is not no we don't people don't expect random performances from him. This is Florian Wirtz who cost 120, came from Bayern Leverkusen. He had expectations. He was considered one of the best players in his position in the 10. He was considered the best player for Germany. And then they treat him like he's a kid. They treat him like he's a baby. They treat him like he's a baby. Oh, give him time. Oh, he's 23 years old. He's been playing since he was 18. He cost 120. He's at Liverpool Football Club, the second biggest team in the whole of England. This one of the top, probably top one of the top five, top six biggest clubs in the world. One of the teams that are expected to win, who won the league before he got there. Liverpool won the league. Isak Florian Wirtz got there, and now they can't win. They can't control the game. They can't keep possession. They can't create chances. It's embarrassing by those two, and it's not all on them. But they're the guys that you expect to win you the game. They're the guys you expect to win, to put in, create chances, put in good performances. They're the players you expect to carry you across the game, across the line, to get you the win. Those are the players you expect to do that, right? But on the other hand, Gakpo looked electrifying. Gakpo looked very, very good. He was very involved. He kept shooting, and then he gave the perfect shot. What an electric and beautiful shot by Cody Gakpo. Szoboszlai, I think he was slower. He started off slow, but I think he got into the game. And the guy I want to talk about for Liverpool Football Club that I think changed the game for Liverpool, that got them the tie, is Victor Munoz. I've talked about Victor Munoz before. I talked about how he should start. And it's because he fits the prem, he fits the prem so perfectly. I watched a couple of games of him. I remember his debut at Real Madrid. I think it was a Barcelona game, where he got on the counter. He missed the shot. He was 1-on-1, but you could see that he has something in them. And then you could see in the season he was loaned out as well. He looked very good. And then now at Liverpool, he fits the prem. He's fast. He's strong. He's electric. He's very forward thinking. He takes on his fullback, whether he's at right wing, whether he's at left wing. Victor Munoz is going to be very important for Liverpool. He came on for Rio Ngamo, who was very slow to me. I expected more from Rio, but Victor Munoz looked very good. I think he's gonna I think he's the perfect winger for Iraiola's system. He's very direct. He puts in the cross. He takes on his fullback. He's very fast. People don't understand how quick he is. He is very fast. He is very fast. So I wouldn't be surprised if he's up there with Elanga this season for highest speeds or fastest sprints. He's gonna be up there. He's very fast. You guys will see how fast Victor Munoz is. Who else had a good game? Ronald Araujo had a pretty surprisingly good game. He's not a player I expect a lot from, but he got into when Liverpool had their best moments. Ronald Araujo was winning duels. He was winning the balls. He was defending very well. There was a play right actually where Van Dijk goes a bit forward, tries to step up a little bit, and he loses the ball. Now it's Ronald Araujo versus, which I think was two or three players. One of Liverpool's fullbacks was coming back, so it was like 2v3. But Ronald Araujo, perfect tackle, and then blocks the ball perfectly. I think he had a very good performance, Ronald Araujo. Liverpool's fullbacks is gonna be it's gonna be a very funny season for them, because Kirk has struggled a lot already, but I think Kirk will get used to Iraola again. He understands Iraola, Iraola understands him. I think he'll get back to the level. But on the other side, Frimpong, embarrassing performance as well. I'm not giving him too much like I did Florian Wirtz and Isak because he cost around 30 or 40 million, and people knew he was a right wing back. People know he's a right back. People weren't calling him the best right back in the world. People were saying he's top three best right backs in the world, but he's just bad. There's not much to him. He runs fast. He could cross sometimes. He doesn't have the highest IQ compared to other fullbacks. I feel like Liverpool would have gone for Coyote, and you know what? I'll probably talk about Spurs in this video too. Because that game had me very entertained. But Coyote, I think, would fit Liverpool very well. But fullbacks for Liverpool is a problem. Wingers for Liverpool is a problem. Midfield, I think, is a problem. Because you look at Gravenberch, you look at Soboslai, you look at Alexis McAllister, you look at Florian Wirtz. That's four players for a team that's going to play Champions League and Premier League and FA Cup. May probably make it far in the FA Cup. Probably make it far in the Carabao Cup. I think they need another midfielder there. Unless they have I think it was Costulas for Liverpool. He came on. He looked very good. He looked very good on the ball. He looked very confident. And they might give. I think Bajetic is back in the club if they give Bajetic time. If they're thinking about Harvey Elliott playing in midfield, they should be good. But if they don't, I think they should go for another midfielder, maybe a DM, a guy that wins duels, that wins the ball back, a guy that wins his tackles. I think they need a player like that alongside of Sobos. I think Gravenberch looked pretty bad the game, but like I said in the Man City and Enzo Maresca situation, you got to give them time. Iraola is a new manager. I think he's one of the best upcoming managers. I think this is the right step he needed, and I just think a lot of these players will fit his system at some point. You players like Sobos, like Victor Munoz, Rion Gamo, Cody Gakpo, yeah, Kirkes, the center backs, Van Dijk, Jaquet, who I think was all right, Ronald Araujo. A lot of these players will fit Iraola's system pretty perfectly. It's a pretty perfect combination, but they need a couple more players. They need a couple more midfielders, maybe another winger or two. But I'm a guy that I rate Iraola very highly. I believe in what he does. As a neutral fan, I believe in Iraola. I have very high confidence for him, and I think he'll do very well. But they just gotta give him time. They can't start saying to sack him and everything right away. Give Iraola. We'll give him time. And he will succeed, and he will give trophies to Liverpool. I promise. I promise. And I mentioned Coyote for Brentford and Brentford versus Spurs. I was only gonna talk about Sunday games, right? The Super Sunday games, big games, important games, fun games. But I also watched Spurs versus Brentford, and I was very entertained by that game. There was had a lot of ideas going into this game. I felt Spurs, new signings, manager that saved them from relegation, new mentality, new system, new players, new way of play, more excitement. It's the opposite of that. Brentford, it's not that I didn't rate Brentford, I rate Brentford, but I didn't know they were this good because there's ways to win a game, right? There's ways to win it. You can look at the way Man United lost against Hull, right? Hull City was getting them on the counter, winning the duels in the air, winning the free kicks, winning the corner kicks, like very intense, hard game, right? There's a way to win it. Man United were very bad. Hull were on it. They were wanted it more. But the thing with Brentford is that they wanted it more. They play better football. They have better patterns of play. They defend better. They attack better. They keep possession better. They were so good. Brentford surprised me, not because I didn't expect a lot from them, because I think they're just very good football club. They look so good on the ball, and it's sometimes you expect these like mid-table to lower class teams. You expect them to be more on the more counter-attacking team, more winning your duels, more like headers, more aerial wins, you know. But no, Brentford is the opposite. They have a very good footballing philosophy, very good on the ball. Movement is very good. A lot of their players they understand the system. They know where to be at all times. They know where to position themselves. They pass the ball and they move forward. And Brentford just looked very good. And Spurs just looked very bad. You know, part of it was because Brentford is so good, but part of it is because some of their players are very bad. Like I was planning on being a little bit more calm, a little bit more slow on it, you know, be a little bit more nice. But the way Spurs played was just embarrassing, you know. You look at the lineup: Richarlison, Mikey Moore, Gallagher, Tell I guess is okay, but Bergval, you know, you bought Fernandez for 85 million and you bench him in your first game. You know, their center backs I think looked pretty soft. Van Hecke made a couple of mistakes. Senesi made some mistakes. You look at their fullbacks, and I'm just thinking maybe they should have kept Spence. You know, maybe they should have kept Spence because if Porro is out injured, you have Archie Gray, who I consider him more of a midfielder. You have him at right back. And when you could have Jet Spence, you know, if Porto gets injured, you can have a midfielder at right back instead of having Spence, who I think is a solid fullback. You know, you look at left back Robertson. I think Robertson was probably their best player in the entire 90 minutes. I think Robertson had a very good game going forward and defending. He saved Spurs center backs a lot. There's a lot of times where Brentford players were just running behind Spurs' center backs. You know, they were just running behind Senesi. They were running behind Van Hecke, and they didn't know where everyone was. And Robertson was the one covering all that space, and I think Robertson had a very good game. Their center backs was atrocious. Kinski, man, people were telling me, "Oh, revenge Kinski." You know, I even said it myself. I think he's looked very good in preseason. I think he's looked all right, but then he puts up some of the saves and some of the balls he just kicks up. Like it's very things aren't looking too good at Spurs and I know Roberto De Zerbi. I rate him very highly as well. He's a manager that I like. I like how aggressive he is. I like how his footballing philosophy is. Very playing out the back. But the thing is, you can't play out the back when you have Conor Gallagher, Bergval in midfield. Like you can't. That I don't think those aren't midfielders you could play out the back with. And even Tonali, Tonali was embarrassing. He was very bad. He tried doing a lot of switches. You know, switch the ball to play. He would miss the ball. He tried breaking lines. He couldn't break the lines. He would make forward runs. He would lose the ball. He would do even the simple passes Tonali couldn't get right. And you look at the Mikey Moore. The thing is, if Mikey Moore scores the chances he has, it would have been different, right? But the thing is, it's Mikey Moore. Why haven't they signed any attackers? You know, their attack was Matthias Tell, Richarlison, and Mikey Moore. Like you're not gonna finish top six with that front three. You know, you're never gonna finish in European positions with that front three. There's other teams with better front. Brentford has a better front three than that. You know, Crystal Palace maybe has even a better front three than that. You look at Everton; Everton have a better front three than that. Like. You can't be Spurs fighting trying to get European competition have that as a front three. You know, they signed Savinho, they signed Marmoush, but even Savinho, for the amount of money they paid, I don't think he's that good. He can be that good, but at this current moment, I don't think Savinho is that good. You know, people even took the Ino from him. You know, they were calling him Savio. They took the Ino from him. You know, they were saying he wasn't Brazilian. 2 goals in 2 seasons. Marmoush is a player that I like. I rate him very highly. I think he'll succeed under Roberto De Zerbi. But you got to give Spurs time. You know, it will take them time. And the thing that annoyed me more, right? it was a mentality aspect of it. They would lose duels and their head would go down. They would make a bad pass, their head would go down. They would miss a shot, their head would go down. They conceded, their head. It's just so annoying to watch because they make one mistake and they think that it's over. They think the game is over. They lost the 3 points. It's over, and that just annoys me. Like some of these players that are experienced players, they would concede or make a mistake, and instead of going back and running towards it like dogs, right? Instead of losing the ball and running towards the ball like dogs and just wanting it, right? Their head would drop down and they jog back. Their head would drop down and like no, like that's not even how the Roberto. That's not how your manager is, and you're being like that. I wouldn't be surprised if for the next Spurs game, Roberto De Zerbi benches a lot of them. I wouldn't be surprised if Bergbaum doesn't start, if Conor Gallagher doesn't start, if Mikey Moore doesn't start, if Richarlison doesn't start. I wouldn't be surprised if he makes all these changes, right? Because you looked at their bench, they had an alright bench. Solanke, Madison, that them alone could probably change up the entire games for them. Fernandez. The next game, Spurs better start Solanke, Madison, and Fernandez, and then I think it switches up a little bit for them. They had even the lineup was very bad, but as bad as Spurs were, like I want to keep talking about Brentford because they just looked so good. I was very impressed. They would play out the back, and the thing is, right. There's this thing that managers and teams want to force the play out the back. They want to force the play out the back. They're getting pressed and they want to force it. Play out the back or nothing. But no, Brentford knew the exact moments when to play out the back. They knew exactly when to hit the ball long. They knew exactly when they could open up wide and play out wide. They knew when they could play through the middle. They knew when they could just give the ball a bit to Igor Thiago, right? Igor Thiago, he didn't have the best of games, but he helped the ball move forward, right? He pushed the team up. They pushed the ball to him. He would chest it down. I liked watching that so much. They would just give the ball, bang it up to Igor Thiago. He wins it, boom, chest it down. And now what? Brentford on the attack, right? They would pass the ball to him, very bad passes to him, but guess what he would do? Chested down to him. Now Brentford are fully on the attack, fully in control, fully in possession. Like Igor Thiago is very important for them, and a lot of their players are just very, very good. Their midfielders, their center backs, they understand each other so well, they connect so well. Their attack, their midfielder Jensen was so good. That midfield was so good. Jensen is so good on the ball, and the thing is, they just dominated Spurs' midfield, right? They dominated the midfield because Brentford's midfielders knew when to crash the box. They knew when to run into the box. Their DM was one of the players that scored the goals, right? They knew exactly when to push forward. They knew exactly when to push backwards. They knew exactly when to press. The way they were pressing Spurs. It was so intense. It was so good to watch. It was so exciting. Spurs were trying to play out the back like Roberto De Zerbi does. Brentford were on them, and it was a very exciting game. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed Brentford. Keith Andrews, what are you doing to Brentford, man? And the thing they never ever looked like that under Thomas Frank ever. Keith Andrews. They look so good, man. They look so good. Keith Andrews, Brentford beat Spurs 3-0 in the first game. Liverpool tied with Newcastle 2-2. Man City beat Bournemouth. Football is back. The Prem is back. We're excited. Who isn't excited for this? I'm very excited. Fulham versus Chelsea is in a bit. That's another game I'm very excited for because of the Madrid connection to both those teams. So Premier League is back. I'm gonna try to do my best to cover the Super Sundays and cover the bigger games and cover some of I watched Leeds versus Forest, right? It was so boring. It was so bad. I understand Forest is getting used to Oliver Glasner. I understand they need time. But that game was just pretty boring. There wasn't much to it. The goal was because Matt Sells should have saved the goal that he didn't save. Arsenal won a pretty comfortable game. I could have probably talked about Man United. I talked a little bit about Man United and Hull City, which is pretty funny to see. But Super Sunday, Spurs, Brentford, shout out to Brentford. Huge shout out to Brentford. And yeah, make sure to like, subscribe because we got more coming out, guys. We got more coming out.